Well, guys, I think the biggest question that we have when we're looking at what the best way to do a replay of any season in any sport is how do you become really immersed? That's the thing that you really want to know. I mean, what can you do to make it so that this replay project feels real and so that it's something that's interesting and that's fun and it's not just a chore? This is especially something you need once you get to those dog days of summer, June, July, August, when you're playing with teams that are 20, 30, 40 games out of first place and you're thinking, I just want this game to be done with and to do something else with my life. It's good to take some time and to look at whatever you can find to get yourself immersed. I think it might be different for many people, but for me, even more so than reading books about a season and reading, what historians have said and stuff, what I like to do is I like to look at original newspapers, and that's what we're going to do a little bit of here today. So we just finished this morning with the Superbus Cubs game. It's interesting to look and see what the papers were saying on May 16th, 1908. So this is the Chicago Daily Tribune with more news there about Taft. And a few little things here and there about what the United Chippers, this rail levy that they're talking about. I'm not going to dig really deep into this. If you're really interested in old labor law from 1908, this channel is probably not the best place for you to look at, right? But it's sort of interesting to see what they're talking about. In old newspapers, you always get stuff like this, man's body taken from canal. I mean, that's kind of fun, interesting. We don't know why he died. They found 72 cents on him, and then they found some numbers in ink, indelible ink written on his collar, and who knows what was going on. I mean, so it is, 72 cents. It was Chicago in 1908. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on. There's talk about using the pillars of City Hall and Grant Park there. It's always interesting to look at advertisements. We have to remember back in those days is that if you're going to advertise something like, say, a petticoat, the only way you really have to advertise this is in print media. I mean, you can put a sign out in front of your store and hope that you have a lot of people walking by, but really the newspaper was the best way to get stuff out. There's no radio, there's definitely no television, and of course there's no internet at all. So you're looking at magazines and at newspapers, and that's about it. So it's always interesting to look at, right? If you know the history behind this stuff, drawings like this, there were a number of guys who were professional artists of this type, and I'm going to get this all completely wrong. I'm not a sketch artist at all. Different sort of comic type drawers, and you would find people who would collect tons and tons of clippings of stuff like this, to give them a visual aid for when they were creating their own advertisements, right? This is something that you'll see a lot of if you spend a lot of time with these old advertisements and with these old print publications. It wasn't just a comic book thing, as you can see here. You can see different drawings of this and that. There's professional newspaper drawings and sketches and stuff. It's also not just editorial cartoons. There's all sorts of times when you see those. And it's an interesting time as well to look at newspapers because in addition to the drawings, you also have these photographs. This is clearly a photograph of Lena M. Collins, who is part of the Royal Neighbors of America. So, so interesting as that might be. You can get a suit for $25 or $35 or $40, depending on what you want, along with a stylish Monroe $2 hat. These days, if you wore that hat, people would call you a neckbeard. And that's just how things change over the course of 120 years. Malt tonic, stuff like that. The colonel says the defense of the bigamist who said he was only trying to get a good one was not perfectly satisfactory in law, but his conduct may have been more excusable than that of the man who is not content when he gets a good one. Consistency is a great virtue, saw, and I practice it by maintaining an undeviating preference for Henderson bourbons. Pretty good stuff. It's always interesting to go back and read and sort of see what it is that people were doing. You can see this couple married 60 years. Back then, you get your name in the fifth page of the Chicago Tribune if you've been married for 50 or 60 years. These days, if you're lucky, somebody will click like on your Facebook page. And so we move forward here and see what else it is that we can find. Giving away dollar bills is the EC girl. I have no idea what this is. See this Space Monday, ask your grocer. I mean, so if you read books like, Crazy '08, you'll think that, man, Chicago in 1908 was like the Wild West. like sort of, but not entirely. I would argue it's probably more like the Wild West today. There were some signs, believe it or not, of like normal, civilization. And here we go. This is our favorite part, which is the sports section. I've talked about this a lot before. You get these great cartoons, as you can see there on the thumbnail, which gives you a chance to look and see exactly what happens. I guess that's the thumbnail for this morning's game. And you get all sorts of other interesting things going on here. Everything, of course, is baseball news. And the reason why is because, of course, it is May 1908, right? There's not too much else going on in the sporting world. There's a little bit, and you will get turf results, auto hill stuff. You can find soccer games if you look closely enough every now and then. Usually you want to look at a Sunday page if you want stuff like that. Look at this, changing the soccer rules, speak of the devil. An amendment to the rules was passed, making it possible for players who compete in the Sunday leagues to play in the league games next fall. Permission also was given for teams in the league to play any of the Sunday league teams after the close of their schedule. The Hyde Park team, which was penalized for playing an ineligible man, sent in its resignation. Interesting stuff, and we won't go too deep into the history of soccer, but those of us who know about it find it pretty fascinating to look at. Of course, the Chicago Tribune, you get the editorial page, which is of interest to some. It's actually not really that interesting, I would argue, unless there are certain things going on. Editorials don't age very well. That's sort of the problem with it, whereas the actual news tends to age better and tends to be more important for you if you are a historian. You have little advertisements here for books. I picked up a copy of The Last Egyptian in Chicago and read it on the train coming east. It is a new book just out and one of the best yarns I have ever read in many a year. It rings true, and that is the best thing which can be said about any book. It gets right down to business at the start, and every chapter bristles with exciting situations, intrigue, character study, love complications, fighting, treasure hunting, and all the other elements which go to make a readable story, but they are all brand new. Several of my friends read it, including Mrs. L. They all like it. The only fellow who didn't like it was the porter on the train. He couldn't get me to turn in. Yeah. The Last Egyptian will be the 1908 big hit, or I'm mistaken. Well, the author's name is withheld for some reason, but whoever he is, he knows it's Egypt. A well-known Chicago businessman sends us the foregoing extract from a letter which he received from a friend in New York. The man who wrote the letter is widely known throughout the United States, but we didn't use his name. We're not permitted to give the names. The testimonial was unsolicited by us, but it describes the book to a dot. So go check out The Last Egyptian. Let me know what you think. Let me know if it's a good read or not. You can probably find that for free on the Internet Archive, along with all the other books that you'll find from this time period. And if you can't find it for free there, I think I know where else you can find it for free, but we're not supposed to talk about that. Lots of interesting stuff here. I mean, a vacation among the Rockies in Colorado, 1908. That would have been a crazy vacation to go on. That would have been pretty interesting. There's your loan sharks. You got different hotels listed there, of course, and all sorts of different stuff. It's really, really cool to go through some of this. And even the stuff that at the time you probably wouldn't look at, like the savings bond rates and stuff like that. Today, to go back and look at this stuff is just absolutely fascinating. Really cool stuff. So you can get as deep into this as you want. You can just do a shallow thing. I'll tell you the truth. These days, I don't get too deep into these papers because I have a lot of stuff to write and a lot of stuff to do for the projects, as well as a normal job. But if you really want to dig in and if you really want to immerse yourself, it's actually all right in front of you. And you can do it if you so choose. And it's kind of fun to do. It's kind of fun, especially every now and then, if you feel like you're a little bit overwhelmed with the games in your replay, to go back and take some time, look at the classified ads, or just look about, timely sale girls wash dresses about 1/3 saving, and think about the dresses you could buy for your daughter back in 1908 that would cost like $1.19, and wonder what in the world happened to what the world that was. 3-piece combination suit, $25 or $28, not bad at all. Can't do that today. And so there you go. And this is the Saturday Evening Post. Interesting, a little advertisement there as well. There you have it. So lots of cool stuff to find in here. And I recommend, of course, if you have the time, for whatever replay it is you're doing, get one of these newspaper subscriptions and go over and check it out. You'll enjoy it. It's cool. Just about every season is cool. Every year is. Though the more modern years, you might not find quite as much stuff from every city. If you're doing Dead Ball era, you can find stuff from just about everywhere. Even Cleveland if you find the right website, apparently. So there you go. Talk to you later. Bye.